Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. Coming up in the next hour, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi to attend COP28 summit in Dubai starting Thursday. Climate priorities to dominate the agenda. Leaders from the world over praise India for the successful rescue of 41 workers trapped in an under-construction tunnel that collapsed in Uttarkashi. Chief of US Space Agency NASA visits India for talks on collaboration with ISRO, hails the success of Chandrayaan-3 mission to the moon. And Israel and Hamas set to release more hostages amid efforts to extend the truce. UN Refugee Agency scales up aid delivery in Gaza. The UAE is hosting the COP28 summit from 30th November. World leaders will discuss climate priorities. India is an influential voice of the developing countries at the annual COP event. Taposh Bhattacharya reports from Dubai.
In a pivotal moment for global climate action, the spotlight turns to the upcoming COP28 summit hosted by the United Arab Emirates. Set against the backdrop of the urgent need for a rapid transition towards sustainability, COP28, convening in Dubai on November 30, navigates the delicate balance between economic transformation and sustainable development.
We are looking forward to participating in COP28 at our highest level. Honorable Prime Minister will himself be here. And I would say the world is looking forward to his participation because every time he participates, he shares his vision, which the world takes very seriously. Right since the Paris Agreement was signed, we have shown the world that we have walked our talk when it comes to climate change. We have taken the lead.
As the holder of the COP presidency, the UAE shoulders the responsibility of steering discussions towards critical agreements. Key tasks include securing commitments on the global stocktake of climate action, building consensus on the global goal on adaptation, and establishing the Loss and Damage Fund.
Following the G20 announcement, where climate has been really put high up on the agenda, I think India is going to put all its weight behind to make this happen. And I think funding constraints or any other constraints will not really get into the way.
The urgency of the situation looms large, demanding the mobilization of an estimated $4 trillion annually by 2030 to support the clean energy transition. Achieving a net zero goal by mid-century requires collaboration on an even grander scale. The recent participation of the UAE in the G20 summit in Delhi adds a layer of influence, with global emission reduction targets echoing in the corridors of COP28.
Carbon footprint is all around us in every single metal that we produce or in every single thing that we use. So that way, I think India has seen innovations coming across all three sectors.
The UAE, acknowledging its role as a significant oil producer, contemplates support for carbon capture storage technologies. Amid these challenges, promising initiatives like the Green Hydrogen Innovation Center and the Global Biofuel Alliance emerge, offering glimpses of a cleaner, more sustainable future.
As we approach COP28, the world watches with bated breath. Can UAE, in the heart of an oil-centric landscape, lead the way towards a more sustainable future? The answer lies in the discussion, the debate, and the decision that will unfold in Dubai. The journey to balance energy transition, economic transformation, and sustainable development has never been more critical. With camera person Jaishankar, this is Taposh Bhattacharya for DD India from Dubai.
Now, Dubai is a gleaming high-tech city in a country that's awash in petrodollars. Among the key decisions nations must take at the COP28 in Dubai is whether to agree to gradually phase out global consumption of fossil fuels and replace them with cleaner sources such as solar and wind.
Delegates from nearly 200 countries will convene this week for the COP28 climate summit in Dubai. Its host and OPEC member, the UAE, hopes to sell the vision of a low-carbon future that includes, not shuns, fossil fuels. That narrative, also backed by other big oil producer nations, will throw the spotlight on international divisions at the summit over the best way to combat global warming. Countries are split over whether to prioritize phasing out coal and oil and gas, or scale up technologies such as carbon capture to scrub away their climate impact. The annual United Nations Summit from the 30th of November to the 12th of December is taking place as the world is poised to shatter another record for the hottest year in 2023. New reports confirm that the current climate pledges are not enough to avert the worst impacts of global warming. A big job for countries at COP28 will be to assess how far off track they are from the 1.5 degrees Celsius goal. This process, known as the global stocktake, should yield a high-level plan telling countries what to do to achieve that goal. It will then be up to the governments to turn the global plan into national policies and targets, which they will have to submit to the UN in 2025. Another key task for the summit is to launch a world-first climate damage fund, which is dedicated to helping countries that have already suffered irreparable damage from climate change impacts such as drought, floods, and rising sea levels. Another test is whether wealthy nations announce money for the fund at COP28 to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars. This year's gathering of 70,000 registered attendees will have more of a trade show feel than previous COPs. It includes the biggest participation from businesses for any UN climate summit yet. High-profile figures such as India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Britain's King Charles are set to attend. The US President Joe Biden will be conspicuous by his absence. Ramesh Ramachandra's report, DD India.
Now, a Hindu temple is coming up soon in Abu Dhabi. It's said to be the first Hindu place of worship in West Asia. Swami Brahmavihari has said that this temple will strengthen the cultural ties between India and the UAE. He applauded the work of Prime Minister Narendra Modi of India in strengthening action for climate protection.
It's very appropriate at this time that the mandir, which is going to be opened on 14th February 2024, at the, of course, most deserving and noble hands of our beloved Prime Minister and His Holiness Mahan Swami and the leadership of the UAE. I believe that a culture which has this depth and a leader who has this culture, like our beloved Prime Minister, is very appropriate. He's coming for the opening of COP28 and at a platform where the world is uniting to save the earth. As a part of saving the earth, we need to save human beings as well. That's why this mandir is very appropriate, that it saves the values that keeps us human. Values of love, peace and harmony.
Now, carbon credit markets could play a critical role in the global drive to net zero emission. But the industry is marred by questions over transparency and system integrity. Experts describe the next few years as a sink or swim moment for carbon offsetting, with much of it hinging on addressing its credibility. DD India's Patrick Falk reports from Singapore.
Now, what typically most of the data sets that are being utilized is of this caliber data set that's loading right now.
Clinton Libby is founder and managing director of Kumi Analytics. The company integrates satellite imagery with machine learning to assess environmental changes and to calculate carbon offsetting credits. What you see here is a satellite image measuring forest canopy density. On the right is the high-resolution detail Kumi Analytics gathers to make its measurements. On the left is the low-resolution imagery many other companies currently employ to make their calculations.
The issue that we face in the market right now, particularly in the carbon markets, is they're based on methodologies developed 15 to 20 years ago, which did not leverage technology to its fullest capability.
The data collected by Libby covers a nature-based carbon offsetting project to conserve and restore mangrove forests in Indonesia's Sumatra province. It's the first project using Kumi Analytics methodology to calculate and verify voluntary carbon offsets, and it aims to address growing criticism of the industry. The carbon credits business is undergoing a credibility crisis, centering in part around the accuracy of the data gathered to calculate and issue offsetting credits. One major report published earlier this year found that 90% of rainforest carbon offsets issued by the world's largest certifier of credits are worthless. Such reports are weighing on the market. Companies bought just 155 million offsets in 2022, 4% less than the year before because of fears over reputational risk from purchasing low-quality credits. Libby says the accuracy and frequency of data gathered to calculate credits is key to overcoming some of the concerns. Making it openly available for auditing purposes is another.
It's upsetting to me when we see certain companies that get in trouble and say that they're greenwashing when they invested tens of millions of dollars into projects.
Nature-based solutions account for around a third of carbon offsetting. Experts say voluntary offsets need to grow 15 times what current levels are by 2030 to meet the goal of staying within the targeted 1.5% global temperature rise. Rebuilding confidence in the system is crucial.
So what we are really looking at is saying, how do we make sure that a lot of these criticisms, to an extent which may be fair, but also stop any investment in nature-based solutions, which we absolutely need to stop both nature loss and climate and mitigate climate change.
Equally important is for companies looking to invest in credits to demand change and to ensure offsets are validated accurately with the technology that's at hand today. Patrick Falk in Singapore for DD India.
The Bangladesh Meteorological Department has released a forecast near the Andaman and Nicobar Islands. According to the report, a low-pressure area near the Andaman and Nicobar Islands is likely to intensify into a cyclonic storm over the Bay of Bengal within the next few days. The low pressure over the Andaman Sea and adjoining area moved west-northwestwards and intensified into a well-marked low pressure and now lies over southeast Bay of Bengal and adjoining South Andaman Sea. According to the forecast, it's likely to intensify further. The weather may remain mainly dry with temporary partly cloudy skies over Bangladesh till Friday. The night temperature may fall slightly and day temperature may remain nearly unchanged over the country. To West Asia now, it's the sixth and final day of the current truce agreed to by Israel and the Hamas. There are hopes that the agreement could be extended. Now, last night, 12 more hostages were released, taking the total number to 81. For now, more than 160 people remain in Hamas's captivity.
Wednesday marks the sixth and final day of Israel-Gaza ceasefire, but hope for an extension of truce remains alive. Hamas has released 81 hostages, securing the freedom of 180 Palestinian inmates. However, 161 people still remain captive, including 146 Israelis and 15 foreigners.
Today is day 6 of the hostage release pause, which has now been extended beyond the original 4 days. Last night, we welcomed home 12 hostages, 10 of our citizens and 2 Thai nationals. The latest numbers, 161 people remain as hostages in the Gaza Strip. That number includes 146 Israelis and 15 foreigners.
On the last day of truce, families and friends of Israelis gathered in Tel Aviv, urging the government to extend the temporary truce and ensure safe return of their loved ones.
It's not enough, and we need to carry on this process until all of them, all the hostages are back here.
Meanwhile, the chief of Israeli armed forces stated that they are prepared to resume combat against Hamas in a self-defense war once the ceasefire concludes.
We have created the conditions for the return of our citizens home. We will continue doing so. We are preparing for the continuation of the operation to dismantle Hamas. It will take time. These are complex goals, but they are justified beyond measure.
On the humanitarian front, aid trucks continue to reach Gaza during the prolonged truce. Gas and diesel shipments entered Gaza on Tuesday, addressing critical needs. Additionally, the first of the 3 US planes carrying humanitarian supplies landed in Egypt, demonstrating international efforts to provide assistance. Amish Mahajan for DD India.
Still to come on DD India News Hour. The world praises India for successfully rescuing 41 workers who were trapped for 17 days in a collapsed tunnel. India's defense minister addresses a defense conclave in New Delhi that focused on the theme of self-reliance. And India's home minister holds a mega rally in the eastern Indian state of West Bengal.
एक लंबे रक्तपात भरे युग का अंत धारा 370 के समाप्त होने से पहले।
For decades and decades, downtown area of Srinagar has always been symbolic of unrest, turbulence, turmoil, disturbances, and everything that has to do with the disruption.
पहले तो महीने में 20 दिन होता था हड़ताल, अब नहीं होती।
I'm right now standing in the middle of the Jama Masjid market, and this is how weekday here looks like.
दिन को होगा 1-2 करोड़
टर्नओवर
है, बिल्कुल कैश टर्नओवर।
बंद क्या बंद? ये दुकान हालात बिल्कुल ठीक है, बिल्कुल ठीक है, कुछ नहीं होता है।
कश्मीर तो बेनजीर है, हीरा है, दंगा फसाद तो नहीं है।
The making of the Naya Kashmir or New Kashmir.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. Australia's Prime Minister Anthony Albanese hails India for successfully carrying out a rescue operation in Uttarakhand. Australia's High Commissioner to India, Philip Green, in turn calls it an immense achievement.
The success of rescue operation to evacuate 41 trapped workers in Uttarkashi in the North Indian state of Uttarakhand is being hailed across the globe. Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese hailed the Indian authorities for successfully carrying out the rescue operation. Australian PM wrote on social media platform X, "A wonderful achievement by Indian authorities, proud that Australian Professor Rahul Dhirs played a role on the ground." The collapse of under-construction tunnel had occurred on 12th November due to debris falling in a 60-metre stretch on the Silkiara side in Uttarkashi. Australian High Commissioner Philip Green also praised the Indian authorities for successfully rescuing 41 workers trapped in the Silkiari tunnel in Uttarakhand.
The natural human reaction is to be relieved and delighted for these 41 workers and for all of their friends and other loved ones. We were all imagining how terrible it must have been for them in this appalling situation and their families wondering what their fates would be, and how joyful we all feel and relieved that they are safe and sound and back in the arms of their loved ones.
A number of government agencies had joined hands in rescue operation. Besides Australian underground tunnelling expert, Professor Rahul Dhirs too was present in Uttarkashi to advise on rescue operation.
Saying to the rest of the world, with a clear mind and a warm heart, anything is possible. The impossible is possible. And that's what we did here.
This is not the first time that India has conducted such a massive operation. Narendra Modi government has brought paradigm shift in attitude towards disaster management. In 2022, rescue operations at Morbi district in Indian state of Gujarat were completed in just 5 days after 143-year-old suspension bridge collapsed into Machu River, claiming at least 135 lives. In the same year, a rescue operation took place following a cloud burst that hit near the base camp of the holy Amarnath shrine in the Indian state of Jammu and Kashmir. More than 15,000 stranded pilgrims were shifted to the lower base camp in Panchtarani. In 2023, State Disaster Response Force was involved in rescue efforts to evacuate the residents of Joshimath in the Indian state of Uttarakhand, who witnessed scenes of panic amid a growing threat from land subsidence or a gradual settling or sudden sinking of the Earth's surface due to removal or displacement of subsurface earth materials in different areas. Fuzail Ahmed reporting for DD India.
NASA Administrator Bill Nelson is on a visit to India for a series of meetings with key government officials to deepen space collaborations between India and the US. He'll visit the ISRO facility in Bengaluru on Thursday to take a first look at the India-US collaboration mission called NISR, set to be launched by ISRO next year. Among the other missions by both countries, the US is looking forward to send an Indian astronaut to the International Space Station next year.
Bill Nelson and Wing Commander Rakesh Sharma interacted with students at Bangalore. He congratulated India for reaching on the south pole of the moon as the first nation. He said India and US jointly look forward to working on projects in future, and NISR is a great example of strong US-India partnership. The mission to send an Indian astronaut to International Space Station is underway, and astronauts are undergoing training for that.
Join Rakesh tomorrow. We will both see NISR together. I'm looking forward to this. There are two different radars in different bands. One is built by India, the other is built by the US. They're all a part of this very important climate mission.
Bill Nelson said countries like the US and Russia may share different relations on political front, but they command the International Space Station together, hence space has no boundaries.
Politically, the difficulties between Russia and the US that are going on, but not on the space station. The cosmonauts and the astronauts operate the space station together. We built the space station together.
Wing Commander Rakesh Sharma, the only Indian citizen to go to space, also interacted with the students and said astronauts are global citizens and space is a unifying factor. He said ISRO has done immense service in harnessing space technology towards utilizing space science with conscience.
What ISRO has done by harnessing space technology for the socio-economic benefit of our people, we are at a very, very interesting crossroad. This is the very first time that our civilization is stepping out of this cradle and we are returning back to the moon. We are recommencing space exploration with the stated intention of not only exploring but also colonizing first the moon, Mars, and later further away.
Sharing his experience as an astronaut, Bill Nelson, who ventured into space journey, said when he looked at Earth, he could see India and the imposing Himalayan mountains, which was a beautiful view from space, and Himalayas posed as if they are reaching the heavens. Bill inspired students to become astronauts, as India is now a big spacefaring nation with all capabilities to reach for stars. Aisha Khanam for DD India from Bangalore.
Moving on, Ukraine's Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba joined a meeting of NATO foreign ministers in Brussels as the European Union has delivered 300,000 artillery shells to Ukraine. Kuleba called for more support from the military alliance to ensure that Kiev has enough weapons for its counter-offensive on Russia. US Secretary of State Antony Blinken and UK Foreign Secretary David Cameron are among the top leaders attending the meeting that's also aimed at discussing Ukraine's NATO membership bid.
2 weeks ago, I was in Ukraine saying we needed to do everything that we could to help the Ukrainians repel this appalling aggression by Putin. And I'll be building consensus for that view here at NATO today.
And U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has extended his support to Ukraine. He said that the White House will always stand behind Kyiv.
First, we focused on NATO's enduring support and commitment to Ukraine. And I have to tell you, listening to all of our colleagues around the table, every single one expressed strong, enduring support for Ukraine. Some are questioning whether the United States and other NATO allies should continue to stand with Ukraine. But the answer here today at NATO is clear and it's unwavering. We must and we will continue to support Ukraine.
And DD India's Alex Cartier has more from Brussels.
The elephant in the room for this two-day meeting of NATO foreign ministers was the risk of Ukraine fatigue, with Republicans in Washington blocking new US funding for Ukraine, Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban doing the same in Europe, and Western attention drawn to the war in the Middle East. The risk of Ukraine being sidelined was real. But NATO officials reiterated once again that their support is unwavering, pointing to new multi-billion-dollar packages of support from Germany and the Netherlands as proof of the West's commitment, despite Ukraine's much-lauded counter-offensive making limited gains. Secretary-General Jens Stoltenberg said that despite the stalemate, Russia's position in the world is weaker than ever.
Russia is losing influence in its near abroad, not only in Ukraine, but in Caucasus and Central Asia. Russia is also becoming much more dependent on China. Year by year, Moscow is mortgaging its future to Beijing.
For now, NATO allies hope that strong words of support and the new NATO-Ukraine Council launched last summer will show they're serious about supporting Ukraine. But with more than $100 billion in EU and US funding held back by domestic politics, more substantial commitments may be needed sooner rather than later. Alex Cartier at NATO headquarters in Brussels, reporting for DD India.
And now take a look at some other stories making news in India. India's Defence Minister Rajnath Singh addressed the plenary of a DRDO Quality Conclave on the theme of Quality Odyssey for Self-Reliance in Defence Products in New Delhi on Wednesday. Minister Singh said that only quality products create a global demand and that it will help in realizing the vision of making India a global manufacturing hub and net defence exporter. India's Home Minister Amit Shah addressed a rally at Dharamtala in the eastern Indian state of West Bengal. Addressing the mega public rally, Minister Shah said the Citizenship Amendment Act is the country's law and that the Indian government is going to implement it. Chennai, the capital of the southern Indian state of Tamil Nadu, experienced waterlogging in some parts of the city because of heavy rainfall. The heavy rains also caused traffic jams and made it difficult for people to commute. Air pollution in India's capital, New Delhi, remains a cause for concern, prompting the Environment Department to enforce measures outlined in Graded Response Action Plans 1 and 2. The AQI in New Delhi remains in the very poor category. India launches first round of auction of critical minerals with 20 blocks on sale. India's Coal and Mines Minister Prahlad Joshi inaugurated the auction. According to the minister, the 20 blocks are estimated to be worth 45,000 crore at the moment. The auction will take place online via a two-stage ascending forward auction process. The blocks auction will be spread across 6 states and union territories of Jammu and Kashmir. Recently, 24 minerals were notified as critical and strategic minerals through an amendment in the mining rule. And still to come on DD India News Hour, a discussion on the optics and likely outcomes of COP28, which begins in Dubai on Thursday. India's Housing and Urban Affairs Minister Hardeep Singh Puri addresses a national workshop on leveraging private finance for urban infrastructure development. And India's Minister of State for Science and Technology joins the Viksit Bharat Sankalp Yatra at Udhampur.
A platform for the developing world, amplifying the voice of the Global South with a focus on the growing economies, resolving the conflicts, showcasing the culture, tradition, heritage and diversity. Watch Voice of the Global South at these times on DD India.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. A quick recap of the headlines. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi among world leaders to visit the UAE for the COP28 summit, which begins in Dubai on Thursday. World praises India for the successful rescue of 41 workers who were trapped for 17 days in an under-construction tunnel that collapsed in Uttarkashi. And Chief of US Space Agency NASA visits India for talks on collaboration with ISRO, hails the success of India's Chandrayaan-3 mission to the moon. In a significant prelude to the upcoming COP28 summit, India's Minister of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, Bhupendra Singh Yadav, delivered a comprehensive address at the India Global Forum in Dubai. Minister Yadav outlined India's commitment to climate action, emphasizing the country's achievements and future endeavors in alignment with global goals.
Worldwide, we feel that the mitigation, adaptation, loss and damages, and means of implementation, that is very important for developing countries, and developed countries must come forward and fulfill their pledge which they have already announced.
And my colleague Taposh Bhattacharya joins us from Dubai. Taposh, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi goes into the COP28 as the outgoing chair of G20. Now, how does India plan to give voice to the Global South's interests or concerns at COP28?
Well, Ramesh, there are 2 points that are very important as Prime Minister Narendra Modi will embark his UAE tour for the COP28. The first is, he, as you mentioned quite rightly, that he will give voice to the Global South. And why it is important, and it is in fact not just important, it's just imperative that because most of the countries which will be affected or impacted with this current, mitigation targets, if it's not fulfilled, of 1.5 degrees Celsius, these are the states, these are the countries which will face the brunt of the impact, climate change impact, and thus the Global South's voice has to be, heard in a unison, and that's exactly what Prime Minister Narendra Modi has done. He has brought the fragmented division that was earlier existed in the Global South and got them together and gave them one voice, and that's probably one of the major point that India will look forward to and take the initiative that they gained, especially considering the fact that in G20, India played a crucial role in providing those impetus and giving the voice to the Global South. Remember, Global South or the southern or the states which are the third world countries or the developing countries, they generally don't have that kind of wherewithal to raise their voice in front of such a huge gathering, especially a COP28 event where more than 160-70 countries will be coming together. Close to 200 parties, conference of parties will take part. So it is imperative that one country take leadership role, and India has played a pivotal role in giving voices to these concerns of the Global South. So that was point one. The second part is definitely India, along with other countries, are working together in a manner that that underscores the fact that developed countries has so far not been able to work on the climate finance issue. The first, remember a couple of years back, they said that they will provide $100 billion to the developing countries. Not much of a headway has been done on that count. So stock taking will take place in this COP28. Now the stock taking will provide an opportunity to all the countries to underscore the fact that what they have done, what is their nationally determined concerns, and NDCs will be given and they will give what exactly they have done. So it will also put forth exactly what needs to be done. So stock taking will take place, and that's where India's role will become even more crucial. We have seen India's environmental journey in the last 10 years, and that's something that a lot of countries are now talking about in this COP28. Ramesh.
Also, Tapas, COP28 is being hosted by the UAE, which, by the way, is a significant producer of oil. Now, how does the UAE plan to make the COP28 a success, especially when it comes to garnering support for green technologies, such as those used for carbon capture or storage?
You know, quite a valid point. In fact, a lot of activists have been actually talking about this fact that the largest oil producer, one of the largest oil producer in the world, is hosting this COP28. But again, one has to look deep in UAE's work ethic, and you will realize that even though they are one of the largest oil producers, they are part of the OPEC, but even then they are trying, they have been working on a way to wean away from the traditional fossil fuel based economy. In fact, currently, if I'm right now in Dubai has worked in unison with the other Emirates in UAE to move away from the oil-based or the fossil fuel-based economy. They worked on your finance. In fact, UAE or Dubai, for that matter, is one of the major center of finance in the world. Then they also worked on tourism sector and other sectors. So technology is something that they have been working on. What we have been told is that UAE will work in tandem with other countries to make sure that transfer of technology first is taken place, because it is imperative that if you want to move away from the fossil fuel based economy to a more renewable sources of economy, then it is imperative that you have the technology. So far the technology is limited to Western countries, and it is one believes that in COP28 a heated discussion will take place on how technology transfer will take place. And UAE has been, as I mentioned, has been working in the last decade or so to wean away from that. And we believe that this is a big statement from UAE to host the COP28 to show that they mean business.
All right, we'll leave it at that. Tapas Bhattacharya in Dubai, thank you for now. Appreciate it. Also joining me now is Dr. Swasti Rao, who joins us from New Delhi. Dr. Rao is an Associate Fellow at the Manohar Parrikar Institute for Defense Studies and Analyses. It's a state-funded think tank headquartered in New Delhi. Dr. Rao, welcome to DD India News Hour. Now, let me start by asking you, do you think India's track record, its achievements and ambitions will make it a credible voice at COP28, the voice of the Global South, perhaps?
Right. A very good evening to you, Ramesh. It's a pleasure to be discussing COP28 today. Yes, I think certain things when it comes to India needs to be put into perspective. So the COP28 has been around for a while. I mean, the concept has been around for a while. But the thing is that if you look at India's, interventions or India's maneuvering within the COP framework, I think it is very clear that, you can see an evolution. So there was a first generation maneuvering of first generation interventions when India was pretty much in the background. If you remember the Kyoto protocols, etc., we keep talking about Kyoto protocols. So those negotiations, India did have a role to play, but it was still in the background. Right. You see, but what happened a little later, which I call the second generation, so to say, maneuvering in the climate, diplomacy, that started after, say, the Paris Agreement in 2015, because we all know that the Kyoto Protocol could not really sustain, and the rich country particularly were not very happy with the way it was formulated. Anyway, so then came the Paris Agreement, and after that we've been seeing India's role growing, I would say very substantially. And the main things that we see when it comes to India, and you mentioned Global South, is that, India has come in the foreground. India has become much more assertive than it ever was, and it has also become assertive in offering its own narrative. Now, what is its own narrative? I think if you look carefully, one of the things that India has stood for, particularly in context, of the G20 summit this year. So even in the G20, there were connections which were made about how India blocked the final draft outcome, which was almost a last-minute thing, which was about the phase out versus the phase down. And you were just mentioning and discussing it with Tapas right now. That is the entire thing. Actually, even right now in Dubai, as the COP28 is happening, and Tapas mentioned that this particular meeting is more like a stock, a stock take of what really has happened, and there will be clashes around this phase out versus phase down. I think India has been very, very, committed to the concerns of the global south, developing economies which can't really afford a phase out approach to fossil fuels. Right. So this is very important. Other than that, India has been also instrumental in meeting the targets of its own NDCs, which are nationally determined contributions. So I think in that sense, India has also put out this, has led by giving example, where India has done that and most of the developed world has not been able to do that. And then add to that, there are also several Indian initiatives which have been outside the COP, which are like, for example, thanks to G20, it's all now very well known, things like the International Solar Alliance, which is a full-fledged UN-affiliated multilateral agency, the CDRI. India has also got the International Energy Agency to do an analysis of its own proposals. Then you keep hearing about, lifestyle for environment. You keep hearing the Prime Minister's proposal for the pro-planet people, where we have tried to connect it to the masses, etc. So I think what I wish to say and conclude my point with that India's, commitment to multilateralism, especially climate multilateralism, and within climate multilateralism, in a very, very assertive manner, standing for the rights of the global south and being sensitive to the economic demands of their economic, maturity. I think that has really been taken very seriously, and I think that is why India is so ideally placed to be playing this role. So I'm sure we're going to discuss much more later, but for I think this is what really shows India's commitment to climate goals.
Indeed, fair enough. Point taken, Dr. Rao. Excuse me. We keep hearing the word stock taking, so I have to ask you this. Now, I interviewed the Foreign Minister of Seychelles last week in New Delhi. The minister said that the various iterations of COP, that they've been nothing more than a talk shop. Countries talk a lot, but nothing much gets done, especially for the small island states that are at the front line of the climate crisis. Do you feel the same way?
Well, yes. Again, we need to put this into perspective again. See, look at COP, for example, right? This argument that it becomes a global stock take and a talk shop, etc. Well, it's not completely wrong, Ramesh, right? I mean, right now, what is happening is that it's all just an assessment of whether the world has been on track to meet the Paris goals. And the stock take happens every 5 years. And if you look at all the other stock takes, I mean, before the COP28, which is now going to happen, the conclusion which is reached out every single time is that the world is off track.
Right.
So I think when the other countries which are at the forefront of the climate crisis come and say that this doesn't really help, they are not completely wrong. And it is because of that India has, put together initiatives like the CDRI that I was mentioning, that takes a very holistic and comprehensive view of how to tackle climate disasters, etc. And that is why I said that India's diplomacy, especially in climate, climate diplomacy is something which is pretty on point. But coming back to the global stocktake problem, So of course, I mean, this year, this is what we are going to be talking about. And again, I mean, imagine that President Biden is not attending the summit. I think Xi Jinping is not attending the summit. I'm not sure. I don't think President Putin is attending the summit either. So, I mean, all I'm saying is that you can totally see how serious are the global, at least the Western economies and developed economies like China, who sometimes pretend to be in the developing world, but actually are not there anymore. And how serious are they about all this? So you can totally see that somewhere the onus is lying on countries which are sensitive to the concerns of the global South. And that is why India's concerns seem so genuine. So we are going to be talking about this. Right. I'm not sure, because it is happening in Dubai, you did mention that, and Tapas mentioned that too, that this year as well, there is going to be a clash of two main things. One, of course, is that who is going to give and how much money who is going to give for that 100 billion fund. So though it was put together, in one of the previous COPs, but no headway has been made. Right. And I mean, how do you determine whose responsibility is how much, right? So I think that is going to be a thorny agenda. And I'm not sure that any clear formula is going to be reached because of the way the world is mired into, several conflicts. I would say the Ukraine war here and the West Asian conflict there. And number two, the other two thorny issue would definitely be about the phase out versus the phase down. So while Dubai keeps saying that, that we would need to phase down, I think they are not really ready for it, like any other OPEC country. And I think it's like a long-term agenda that they would be looking at in coming years than to come up with a formula right away.
I'm afraid that's all the time we have for Dr. Rao. Thank you once again for joining us and sharing your thoughts with our viewers at home and abroad. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it. Now, in the eco-conscious lead-up to COP28, the UAE showcased Jevun, its eco-friendly marine research vessel launched by the Environment Agency Abu Dhabi. Amid the global urgency to address climate change at COP28, Jevun actively contributes to the Ocean World Discovery Project, emphasizing sustainable practices and ecological awareness. The vessel employs green technologies to monitor and comprehensively assess the marine environment, aligning with COP28's focus on climate resilience and eco-friendly solutions. The vessel's green design and sustainable features showcase the nation's resolve to lead by example in environmentally friendly marine exploration. Equipped with cutting-edge, environmentally friendly research instruments, including energy-efficient laboratories and a remotely operated submarine vehicle, Jevun exemplifies responsible marine exploration. And still to come on DD India News Hour. India to play a 6-match white ball series in Sri Lanka in July 2024. Board of Control for Cricket in India extends contract for head coach Rahul Dhirs. And Sri Lankan artists talk about how studying in India enriched their lives personally and professionally.
Bring you the news as it unfolds. We get to the heart of the matter.
We don't just present facts, we demystify complex social, political and economic events.
We break stories that shape the world's present and future, because you deserve the truth.
I am Tanvi Taneja from New Delhi.
I'm Ollie Barrett from London.
I'm Nick Harper from Washington, D.C.
Join us on DD India Global Monday to Friday at these times.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. The Union Cabinet, chaired by India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Wednesday, approved the extension of FasTrack special courts for 3 more years. The court is set up to provide timely justice to victims of sexual offences. Meanwhile, the government has approved an extension of the PM Garib Kalyan Anna Yojana launched during the pandemic to give 5 kilograms of food grains to 8 crore poor people for another 5 years from January 2024. Additionally, the Indian Cabinet also approved a scheme to provide drones to 15,000 women's self-help groups over the next 4 years. India's Housing and Urban Affairs Minister Singh addressed the national workshop on leveraging private finance for urban infrastructure development, learnings from Infrastructure Working Group G20 in New Delhi. The minister said that since 2014, there has been focused and systematic attention to urban space. He added that as against a total spend between 2004 and 2014, the total spend has gone up by 12 times in the past 8 years of the Modi government.
The urban population already accounts for more than 60% of our national GDP after 2014. I think two things have happened. A, there has been a very focused and systematic attention paid to the urban space. But as against a total spend cumulatively on all the urban schemes between 2004 and 14 of 1,57,000 crores, in the 8 years after June 2015, when the Modi urban schemes came into being, the figure has gone up more than 12 times to 18 lakh crores.
India's Minister of State for Science and Technology, Dr. Jitendra Singh, today joined the ongoing programs of the Viksit Bharat Sankalp Yatra at Udhampur through video conference. The event was organized at the Government High School Kawa in Udhampur, where different stalls by departments were installed to provide knowledge regarding different government schemes started for the welfare of people living in the rural areas. The beneficiaries thanked Prime Minister Modi for making such efforts for their welfare from time to time.
The core concept of it is that we have all the welfare schemes rolled one after the other since 2014. Now is possibly the time to make sure that each of these welfare programs reaches the last man in the last queue. In other words, achieving the saturation targets as you.
An international conference on cyber law, cyber crime and cyber security 2023 is being organized in India's capital, New Delhi. The three-day event will go on from the 29th to the 1st of December. The conference discusses and deliberates upon some of the important aspects, issues and challenges concerning cyberspace. DD India's Siddharth Bharadwaj reports.
In a world where the digital landscape evolves at an unprecedented pace, the International Conference on Cyber Law, Cybercrime and Cybersecurity emerges as a pivotal global event. The 10th edition of the conference, called International Conference on Cyber Law, Cybercrime and Cybersecurity 2023, a three-day event, is being organized at Scope Convention Center, Scope Complex in India's national capital, New Delhi. Addressing the conference, Honorable Mr. Justice Sanjay Kishan Kaul, Judge Supreme Court of India, highlighted the significance of the Internet for societies and the massive misuse of Internet that is emerging across the world.
We live in an era dominated by technology, and while there is much to rejoice about the ease that it has brought in daily lives, the threat of cybercrimes and warfare, as we have talked about, remains a challenge. Countries all across the globe are looking for ways to bring enactments and amendments in the pre-existing statutory framework. There is no shame in admitting that the current set of laws are inadequate.
Conference Director Dr. Pawan Dugal spoke about the evolving legal landscape across the world.
This year, we have a specific focus, and the theme is rise of emerging technologies, artificial intelligence, and deep fakes, and also their impact. So clearly, we want to go ahead and discuss various nuances of emerging trends pertaining to cyberspace. We've got 46 sessions. The Government of India has been supporting all these years the conference, including this year. We have the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, and also the Ministry of Law and Justice supporting it.
While speaking exclusively to DD India, Mr. Alfredo Ronchi, Secretary General, EC Medici Framework, spoke about the ways to strengthen cybersecurity on a global level.
First of all, yes, there's a huge problem that is even increasing about the strength of cybersecurity, because networks and connections are covering all over the world, and we need to have some laws, regulations that will cover all over the world in order to protect users. Of course, the protection of digital content is one of the key aspects in order to improve the use of this, both at personal level and governmental level.
Cyber law, cybersecurity and cybercrime play a crucial role in defining technological journey. recognizing that AI, redefining technology, must be properly utilized to safeguard against its potential misuse. Siddharth Bharadwaj reports for DD India.
And now take a look at some more stories making news around the world. The global economy will slow slightly next year, but the risk of a hard landing has subsided despite high levels of debt and uncertainty over interest rates. This, according to the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. The OECD said on Wednesday that global growth is set to moderate from 2.9% this year to 2.7% in 2024, before picking up in 2025 to 3%. Jailed former Pakistani Prime Minister Imran Khan's party said on Wednesday that he had named one of his lawyers as his temporary standing to contest the position of party head. Barrister Gohar Khan officially announced his nomination to media in Islamabad. Imran Khan's Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf party needs a new chairperson to hold elections scheduled for Saturday. The reconstruction of the Notre Cathedral in Paris entered a new stage on Tuesday as work began on its new spire. The spire's new iteration, made of oak, is designed to be an identical copy of the previous one. The iconic structure had collapsed in 2019 during a blaze that ravaged one of France's most visited landmarks. The year 2023 is being celebrated as the Year of India Alumni by the Indian Council for Cultural Relations. The High Commission of India in Sri Lanka, through its cultural arm, the Swami Vivekananda Cultural Centre, organized an exhibition called Chitralekha in Colombo in October. Artists whose work were displayed at the exhibition had studied art at various Indian universities under the ICCR scholarships. Some of the artists described their experiences and how the Indian Connect enriched their lives professionally and personally. Ahmed Muin Farooqi reports from Colombo.
Chitralekha commemorates significant milestones such as 75 years of establishment of diplomatic relations between India and Sri Lanka and 25 years of establishment of Swami Vivekananda Cultural Centre in Colombo. It's also instrumental in celebrating the Year of India Alumni.
I went to India in 1993 and I joined the Benares Hindu University Faculty of Visual Arts, and I came back to Sri Lanka and started my career as a lecturer there.
And I choose University of Baroda because in Sri Lanka there are no any place to study in art history. So there are few places to study art, basically drawing, painting, and sculpturing and everything. I completed my master in art history in 2019.
We have a lot of feelings and a lot of things. We can't say these things in word. We can't use any word for that feelings. So I try to that feeling how I create in my art, my painting, and I always try to give some shapes for these feelings using colors, shapes, and different techniques.
The art exhibition bridges the emotions of people of the two nations through art. The exhibition also serves as a bridge between the two nations as well as provides a space for the artists who studied in India to display their work. For DD India, Ahmed Muin Farooqi from Colombo.
And now to all the news from the world of sport. Sri Lanka cricket announced on Wednesday that India will tour the island nation for a 6-match white ball series. The series will include 3 ODIs and 3 T20Is in July 2024 after the T20 World Cup next year. The men's national team will play 52 internationals, including 10 tests, 21 ODIs and 21 T20Is in 2024. The T20Is do not account for the additional games that they will play during the T20 World Cup. The ICC banned Sri Lanka cricket for government interference. The Under-19 World Cup has since been moved to South Africa. The national teams, men and women, will be allowed to fulfill their bilateral obligations, though. The Board of Control for Cricket in India announced the extension of contract for head coach Rahul Dhirs and support staff. Now, Dhirs had been serving as head coach for Team India for the past. His contract expired this month after the recently concluded ICC Men's ODI World Cup. During the period when Dravid was out of contract, VVS Lakshman took up the role of the stand-in head coach. Lakshman is head coach for India in the ongoing 5-match T20I series against Australia. Lakshman also heads the National Cricket Academy. Dravid will take the helm again as head coach for India's tour of South Africa. In a daring feat, a 32-year-old Catalan adventurer navigated ice tunnels along a glacial river in the Svalbard archipelago of Norway and became the first to conquer the ice waterfall. He named it Philip's Ladder as a tribute to the dedicated crew which ascended the ice cap with a ladder, trekking 11 kilometers across ice to reach the glacial river. And that's all for this edition of DD India News Hour. Let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X and Instagram. You can also check out our website, ddindia.co.in. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I am Ramesh Ramachandran. From all of us here in New Delhi, thanks for watching DD India News Hour.